Hello, my name is Austin, and I wanted to show off the R2R tool, a tool to link your RAM structural model to Revit in maybe a more simplistic way than what we're used to. Here you can see I have a two-story steel frame structure in Revit with some bar joist and some steel beams and girders. And then in addition, I also have a similarly made RAM structural system model, 2 stories. You can see in RAM, I've modeled this as flat. In Revit, you can see the roof structure is sloped, and the tool kind of just creates a 2D plane to check if your RAM model and your Revit model are in alignment. Another thing to note is that the Revit model is rotated 90 degrees from the RAM model, and the tool can allow for models to be created at a differing rotation parameter. One item that I'd like to note is that in order for this tool to work, I like to start with my regular 3D model and then kind of make individual 3D views by adjusting the scope box in Revit to just show a level at a time. And you'll see why this is in the future. But for now, before going in and starting up this Revit add-in, go ahead and just make a kind of a 3D view per level, and you'll see why here in the future. Okay, with the model set up with 3D views per level, make sure you go to the level that you want to evaluate before clicking on the add-in button of begin transfer of data. The reason for that is when you click this button, Revit becomes, call it, locked down, and you are not able to interact with the Revit model. This is something that I can work on, hopefully for future releases. There is a way to allow yourself to switch views and other items upon starting up an add-in. But for now, the way this works is you will not be able to interact with the Revit model once you click this button. So just make sure you are oriented to the level that you want to compare your RAM model and Revit model to. So in this case, we're looking up at the roof level, and I've got my 3D view set up so I can look at that. Click this button when you want to begin, and you will be greeted with a input window that looks like this. The first item that you want to do is select the RAM file. This is a good air check. You can see I have RAM running right now, so it's going to check to make sure that it's closed before you click this button. Let's go ahead and close our RAM model. And if you remember, the RAM model was rotated 90 degrees. So we need to make sure that we rotate ours 90 degrees. So let me click that, and you hit open. And then similar to in RAM, you'll get green lights. You want to make sure that all of these green lights are lit up at the bottom. And you can see I've lit up the select a RAM file button. The next button you're going to want to press, you kind of work your way down along the top, similar to how RAM structural set up. Let's go ahead and click gather RAM level. This is going to open up all the levels that are in your RAM model. And then let's go ahead and click level 3. And when I do that, it's going to read the RAM structural model, and you can use the arrow keys to go up and down. It's just a 2-story structure, so there's only two levels in here. So let's go ahead and click select level. It's going to go in there, and if you do a double click or double middle mouse button on your keyboard, you will be greeted with a zoom to fit function that imports all of the grid lines that are in RAM. One item of note is that these RAM grids will only show up in this view if you have set the max and minimum parameter. Let me go ahead and show that to you. I think we all know what that is, but if I come into here, and I think because I don't have to have it closed now, but let's go ahead and open up that model that we are looking at. I can show you the grids. But under layout, grids, create, edit, I do edit grids here. You can see how each of these have a max and a min parameter. In order for the grids to show up on that viewing plane, you need to set these parameters. Now that you have the RAM grids brought in, let's go ahead and gather the Revit grids. Again, double middle mouse button, zoom to fit, and then these are all panable and zoomable. So with this, we need to map the RAM coordinate system into the Revit coordinate system. You can see if you rotated RAM kind of negative 90 degrees into the Revit global coordinate system, they would kind of align on top of each other. This function down here attempts to figure out how much X, Y, and rotation you need to apply to the RAM model to get it to align to the Revit model. So let's go ahead and show that functionality. This function doesn't work well at this point, but it's something that I'm working on. But let's go ahead and show that A1 in RAM matches A1 in Revit. So if you click these grid lines and you click this button, you can see it comes pretty close to figuring out that these are rotated 90 degrees. Let's just make this 90 because I know that this is minus 90. And then the only other thing that we're missing is we need to select some Revit beams. So let's go ahead and do that. Windowing over my third floor finish, it filters out to only look at structural framing members. We hit OK. And now you can see we're lit up green, so we can click map the beams. So clicking map the beams, you'll see some of the pitfalls of this X, Y, and this function. Here you are greeted with a screen that shows your, in blue is RAM, in red is Revit of the elements that you selected. And you can see we need to move the RAM model over in the X direction, and we also need to move it down in the Y direction. At this point, I'd say the best way to get this figured out is to just kind of plug in some values and maybe do some calculations yourself to figure out what the X and Y parameters should be. I'll show you how I like to do this. Again, I said positive in the X. So let's go ahead and plug in 100 as a guess, and then we need to move it down in the Y. So again, mapping the beams now, it'll shift over the RAM model, hopefully in the right direction. You can see we're getting closer now. This process is kind of iterative. I know for my model, this needs to be 131, and this needs to be minus 87. If you hit map the beams, you can see it's overlaying quite nicely now. One function that has been added to help you with this that will save these parameters and also the RAM file is you can just hit save here and you'll be prompted to save a file, and it's going to be this R2R map function. If you hit save on that, then you can just come in here. Let's actually say I wipe out these values by accident. You can just come in here and say I want to import my saved files, and you can see it loads those values in. So with this screen, you are greeted with some transparency sliders. Once you like the alignment, you can also check on and off your Revit or your RAM model, depending on what you want to review. And then the last part of this is to click this map the beams. What this function does will go through your RAM model and your Revit model and check if your beam ends are within 1 foot of another beam in the Revit model. If they are, it then goes in and checks the RAM structural beam size and compares it to the type name of the element in the Revit model. Click map the beams, and then you're greeted with this data over here. And this is the reason why I made the tool. You know, this is very quick visual of items that don't match between elements. And I've run this on larger RAM floor models, and, you know, it can handle up to 1,000 beams in, you know, about 2 seconds. So it's pretty quick. So right here, you can see my RAM beam is a 30K7, but in Revit, it's a 30K12. So if I turn off that, you see 30K12 in Revit, RAM 30K7. The other item, so it'll flag the discrepancies in yellow. The other item of note is this mapped parameter. This goes in and says, hey, there is a beam in RAM that we couldn't find a match for in Revit. So let's go and see why this one's getting flagged without the map parameter. So if I turn back on the Revit overlay, you can see that there's just some slight discrepancies on this framed opening in this location. And, you can make a judgment call on, hey, I think that's okay, or I want to go update one of the two models. So again, if you come in here, you can hover over it and it highlights the cell in blue. Same thing. This is all kind of interactive. The colors are a little off. I'd like to get that updated, but for now it's functional and it works. I think that's mostly everything. Let's go back. You can also click on this About button. If you ever run into an issue, feel free to click this and it will open up your email and you can send me an email. I'm looking to actively support this and hoping it's a good tool for engineers that use RAM structural to kind of QA, QC check their models and just, have some assurance that their RAM model and the Revit model are in alignment and agreeing with each other. Thank you.